Hello, friends. I'm so glad you're here. You know, sometimes after a long day, it's nice to slow down and settle into a cozy spot where we can share stories together. This is a special place where bedtime stories help us unwind, spark our imaginations, and gently guide us into sweet dreams. Each night, we'll go on an adventure. Some will be fun, some a little mysterious, but all of them will be told with care, just for you. So grab your favorite blanket, get nice and comfy, and let's enjoy a story together. It's a wonderful way to end the day, isn't it? I'm so happy you're here with me. Tonight's story is called The Nameless Depths. It was in the summer of 1925 when I, Dr. William Ainsley, first received the letter from my old colleague, Dr. Edward Winthrop, a missive so chilling that it has since haunted my every waking moment and filled my nights with ghastly dreams. The letter came, as so many dreadful things do, without warning, slipped beneath the door of my small office at Miskatonic University. The writing was hasty, almost frantic, and the words trembled as though the hand that had penned them was possessed by some unseen terror. Ainsley, the letter began, I have done something unspeakable. Come at once. The Marsten house, Kingsport. It was strange enough that Winthrop, a man known for his measured reason and strict adherence to scientific method, should write in such an agitated tone. Stranger still was the fact that he was at the Marsten house. That accursed estate had long been the subject of rumor and dread ever since its owner, Simon Marsten, vanished without a trace some 50 years prior. Nevertheless, curiosity and perhaps an unsettling sense of duty compelled me to take the first train to Kingsport, a sleepy coastal town shrouded in mist and gloom. The journey itself was uneventful, though the growing sense of unease weighed heavily upon me as the train drew closer to its destination. The landscape became wilder, the sky more oppressive, as though some unseen force hung over the town, blotting out the sun even at midday. I arrived at Kingsport Station just as the evening mist began to roll in from the sea. The town was eerily quiet, and though I had visited before, the place now seemed to hum with a strange, suffocating energy. The Marsten house stood at the edge of town, perched high on a cliff that overlooked the rolling waters of the Atlantic. As I made my way toward the mansion, the narrow cobblestone streets gave way to a desolate path, flanked by withered trees whose twisted branches seemed to reach out like skeletal hands. The house itself was a looming presence, tall, Gothic, and decayed. Its windows, dark and lifeless, reflected nothing of the world outside. The air grew colder as I approached, and by the time I reached the front door, the mist had thickened into a dense, clammy fog that hung to my skin and clothes. I knocked, but no answer came. After a moment's hesitation, I pushed the door open. It creaked, loudly echoing through the vast emptiness beyond. The foyer was dark, save for a single lantern flickering at the far end of the hall. I called out for Winthrop, but my voice seemed to die in the thick air absorbed by the oppressive silence that filled the house. Summoning my courage, I stepped inside. The atmosphere within the Marsten house was suffocating, as though the very walls pulsed with some unholy presence. Dust coated every surface, and the air was heavy with the stench of mildew and something far more unpleasant, something old, rotting, and foul. I made my way through the shadowy halls, my footsteps muffled by the thick carpet beneath. The house groaned and creaked as if alive, the wooden beams above sagging under the weight of years and neglect. Faint whispers seemed to flutter in the air, though I could not place their source. It was as though the house itself was whispering secrets best left unheard. At last, I reached a door that stood slightly ajar, a dim light spilling from within. I pushed the door open fully and found Winthrop seated at a large oak desk, his back to me, illuminated by the flickering light of an oil lamp. He did not turn as I entered, and for a moment I thought he had not heard me. "Winthrop," I called, my voice low. Slowly he turned in his chair, and I stifled a gasp. The man before me was barely recognizable as my old colleague. His face was gaunt, hollow, his skin ashen and drawn tight over his skull. His eyes, once sharp and full of life, were sunken and rimmed with dark circles, as though he had not slept in weeks. His hands trembled as he clutched a tattered piece of parchment, his knuckles white from the strain. "Ainsley," he rasped, his voice hoarse and broken, "you came." I stepped closer, my heart pounding. "Winthrop, what has happened to you? What is going on here?" For a moment he said nothing. His eyes darting toward the corner of the room, I followed his gaze and saw something that made my blood run cold. A large circular stone slab covered in strange ancient symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light. The slab was embedded in the floor, and around it, strange artifacts were scattered, old books, pieces of weathered stone, and what appeared to be fragments of bone. "It's the gateway," Winthrop muttered, his voice barely a whisper. "I've opened it, Ainsley. God forgive me, I've opened it." A gateway to what? He looked at me then, and in his eyes I saw a terror so profound that it sent a chill down my spine. "To them," he said, his voice cracking, "to the things that dwell beneath, the things that should not be." I felt a creeping dread take hold of me. "What are you talking about, Edward? What have you done?" Winthrop turned back to the desk, his hands shaking violently as he shuffled through the papers scattered before him. "Simon Marsten knew of them," he said, almost to himself. "That's why he disappeared. He was searching for the same things I was. But he found something he couldn't control." He held up the parchment, and I could see it was covered in strange symbols and markings like nothing I had ever seen before. "I found his notes," Winthrop continued, his voice growing more frantic. "He had discovered an ancient race, Ainsley, beings older than time, older than humanity itself. They slumber beneath the earth, waiting for someone to free them." My mouth went dry. "Free them, you mean?" Winthrop nodded slowly. "I thought I could control it. I thought I could learn from them, but they are beyond understanding, beyond reason." He stood abruptly, knocking over the chair as he moved toward the stone slab. "The ritual," he muttered, almost incoherently. "I performed it here, right here, just as the texts described. And now they are coming." As if on cue, a deep guttural rumble shook the floor beneath us. The very walls seemed to shudder, and a cold, unnatural wind swept through the room, snuffing out the lamp and plunging us into near darkness. "They're coming," Winthrop whispered, his voice trembling. "I've heard their voices, seen their shapes in the dark. They're coming for us." Before I could respond, a hideous sound echoed through the house, a deep, groaning wail that seemed to rise from the very bowels of the earth. It was not the sound of anything human, nor of any beast that I had ever known. It was something else, something ancient and unspeakable. Winthrop collapsed on the floor, clutching his head and sobbing, "I've brought them here, I've brought them here." Panic gripped me as the floor began to tremble more violently. The air grew thick, almost unbreathable, and I could feel a presence, something immense, something malevolent, rising from beneath the house. I rushed to Winthrop, grabbing him by the shoulders. "We have to leave now." But Winthrop was beyond reason. His eyes were wide, his mouth twisted into a grotesque smile. "It's too late," he whispered. They are here. And then from the darkness, something began to emerge at first. It was nothing more than a shadow, a shape that defied comprehension. But as it grew closer, I saw it, an entity of unimaginable size and form, its body writhing and shifting in ways that no earthly creature ever could. Its eyes, or what passed for eyes, gleamed with a cold, malevolent intelligence. I stumbled back, my mind unable to process the sheer horror of what I was seeing. The thing, the Ancient One, extended a tendril toward us, and the air around it seemed to warp and twist, as though reality itself was bending to its will. Winthrop let out a final, chilling scream as the thing reached him, its form engulfing him in shadow. I could only watch, paralyzed with terror as he was consumed, his body disappearing into the void. With every ounce of strength I had, I turned and fled. The house groaned and shook as I ran through the halls, the air thick with the presence of something monstrous, something that should not exist in this world. I burst through the front door and into the cold night, the mist swirling around me as I stumbled down the path toward the town. Behind me, the Marsten house loomed in the darkness, and from within I heard the faintest echoes of that terrible, inhuman wail. I did not stop running until I reached the safety of the town, and even then, the nightmare followed me, haunting my every step. I write this now as a warning to all who might read these words. There are things that should never be sought, knowledge that no human mind is meant to possess. The Marsten house stands as a cursed monument to the hubris of men like Winthrop, who dared to delve too deeply into the forgotten and forbidden realms. In the weeks following my escape from the Marsten house, the townspeople of Kingsport spoke of strange occurrences, rumblings from beneath the earth, unsettling shifts in the wind, and whispers carried on the night breeze like voices from a distant, forgotten time. None dared approach the house again, and those few who lived near the cliffs claimed that at night, when the fog rolled in thick, they could see shadows moving behind the windows, though the house had long been abandoned. I, too, have not been the same since that night. The thing I saw, the thing that consumed Edward Winthrop, haunts my dreams with a relentless, suffocating presence. Every night I hear the wail from beneath the ground, and I wake with the taste of damp earth in my mouth, as though the very house itself is clawing at my soul, beckoning me to return. The ancient entities that lie beneath the earth are not dead. They are not even sleeping. They are waiting, patient as the slow passage of time. They are the beings that existed before men, before the very concept of time itself, and I fear that their awakening is only a matter of time. The gateway has been opened, the ritual completed, and though I have fled, I know that the danger is not over. The veil between their world and ours is thinner than it has ever been. I have locked myself away in my study, writing this account in a futile hope that someone someday may heed my warning. I do not expect to survive much longer. Already I can feel their presence growing nearer, like a shadow creeping closer with every passing moment. My nights are filled with visions of the depths, of ancient, writhing forms waiting in the darkness, calling out to me, demanding that I return to the house, to the place where it all began. If you are reading this, know that my fate is sealed, and I can only hope that you will not make the same mistake. Avoid the Marsten house, avoid Kingsport, and for the love of all that is sacred, never attempt to contact the things that dwell beneath the surface of our world. There are horrors in this universe that we were never meant to comprehend, ancient forces that exist outside the realm of reason and logic. The gateway that Winthrop opened cannot be closed, and the entities he sought are already reaching out, searching for new minds to twist, new lives to devour. As I write these final words, I can hear them. They are closer now, their whispers louder than ever before. The walls around me are groaning, as if they are bending under some immense pressure, and the air is thick with a terrible, cloying humidity. I know that they are here for me. They will come for me, as they came for Winthrop. I can see the shadows moving now, slithering beneath the door. There is no escape. The nameless things are here, and I fear that when they take me, my soul will be lost forever in the endless depths. Pray that they never find you. Dr. William Ainsley. The manuscript ended abruptly, the ink smeared and faded as though the hand that had written it had been violently interrupted. Those who found the pages among Dr. Ainsley's belongings claimed that the room in which he had written them was undisturbed, save for the strange, wet footprints that led from his desk to the window. The window had been flung open, though there was no sign of how he could have exited from such a height. Dr. Ainsley was never seen again, and though many have ventured to the cliffs where the Marsten house stands, none have returned to speak of what they found there. The house remains, as it always has, brooding and silent on the edge of the world, overlooking the dark, endless sea. But sometimes, when the wind is just right, you can hear the faintest sound, a deep, low wail, like the groaning of something immense and ancient stirring beneath the earth. And if you listen closely, you might even hear the whispers. But be warned, if you hear them, they have already found you. The end. Well, wasn't that a lovely story? I'm so glad that we could share it together. Now, as the day comes to an end, it's time to rest and let all those wonderful thoughts and dreams carry you through the night. Remember, tomorrow is a new day, full of new adventures, and I'll be right here when you're ready for another story. Until then, take a deep breath, get cozy, and know that you are safe, you are loved, and you are important, just the way you are. Good night, and sleep well.